This is Betta Care 101. Yes, it's Betta, not Beta, because they think they're the Alpha, Omega, Sigma, superior fish of all fish, which is far from the truth, but I'm not gonna hurt their ego. Before you get a Betta, you're gonna need a tank to put it in. I recommend 10 gallons for Bettas, period, point blank, comma. There are exceptions. If you have a sick, elderly, or long fin Betta that struggles to swim and get around the tank easily, I'd go down to a 5 gallon. It's more about the height of the tank though than the width of it, because Bettas have a labyrinth organ that they use to get atmospheric air from above the water, and if they're not able to swim to the surface to get air, Betta be gone. If you're getting a giant Betta, I'd recommend at least a 20 long. You're gonna want a low flow filter. It really doesn't matter if you get a sponge filter or a hang on the bag filter. I recommend live plants all the way. You'll need an LED for said live plants. Plastic plants tend to be sharp and cut up Betta's fins, and Bettas love to wedge into small spaces in between plants and stuff like that, so we don't want their fins getting torn up. I've also heard that silk plants, even though they're softer, and I'd rather you go with that than the plastic, I've heard that they can leak dye into the water, so it's probably not the best either. But you know what is the best? Live plants. Because guess what? They filter the water too. Those plants will help you keep the water clean. It's also just really cool how you can buy the plant once and it just keeps growing and growing, and you have plants for generations. You know what I mean? You buy one plastic plant and that's all you got forever from that. Beware of live plants that are toxic to Bettas. The most common one I see is pothos. Margot's here. Margot's here to tell you about pothos and how it's toxic for cats and dogs to consume. It's even toxic for us to consume. I've also read that it's toxic for Bettas to consume. Now, Bettas don't typically eat plants, but if they see a small piece of anything floating in the water, they're gonna try and eat it. It's small enough to fit in their mouth. It must be food. I personally have been aquascaping in my tank, and little bits of roots of cryptocoryne broke off and my Betta was trying to eat it. And I was thinking the whole time, I'm so glad it's not pothos. I can make an entire video about toxic and non-toxic plants that look just like the toxic plants, so if you want to see that, let me know. Just thought I'd warn you about the pothos. I recommend lots of resting spots near the surface of the water. Even if your Betta can get around the tank fine, I notice that they tend to hang out up there. And the Bettas aren't picky on what substrate you choose, but the plants can be, so I'd recommend getting a nutrient-rich substrate, one with fertilizer, lava rock, dirt. You can put dirt underneath some sand. Wow. You can get a giant bag of dirt at Lowe's or Home Depot for $5. Same with gravel, sand, all of it. Get a bag like this big for $5. Instead of going to PetSmart or Petco and getting their bags that are this big for $5. You'll want a heater. Bettas like their water warm. We'll get more into water parameters later. And a thermometer to keep track of the temperature with. A bubbler is not required for Bettas because they have that labyrinth organ, but it wouldn't hurt as long as it doesn't make the flow of the water super strong. And you will need a lid. Bettas are jumpers. In the wild, they jump out of the water to catch bugs that are flying above the surface of the water. They're really good at it, what they're made to do. I've heard countless stories of Bettas jumping out of their tank. I think I even had a Betta when I was little that jumped out of its tank. So beware. Tunnels and places to hide like caves are great enrichment for your Betta. If you're going with floater plants, make sure you keep them maintained. If they're fully covering the surface of the water, A, it's going to be hard for your Betta to get atmospheric air, and B, it's going to trap heat at the top of the tank and make it stopped recording in the middle of that, but the rest of the water is going to be colder than it should be. Now let's talk about the water itself. First of all, don't you dare put that fish in that tank that you just set up. Well, how am I supposed, where do I even put the fish then? Just wait. Be patient, because if you put the fish in, it's gonna poop. And that poop is gonna make ammonia, which is what? So how do you get rid of the ammonia? Well, you could do a water change and remove the ammonia, but then your fish is just gonna poop like 5 minutes later and create more ammonia. We need to cycle the tank. What does that mean? We're gonna talk about the nitrogen cycle. I know, it sounds sciencey. It is, but I'll try to make it simple. It kind of is simple. So we've got this ammonia from the fish poop. There's good bacteria that will colonize in your tank, in the filter media, and on the substrate. They like to colonize on surfaces. And these good bacterias, they're gonna be like, oh my God, there's ammonia. I've been waiting my whole life for this. They're gonna take that ammonia and they're gonna convert it into nitrite, which is still toxic. This is where the patience comes in. You just gotta wait a little longer, and we're gonna get even more bacteria, and that bacteria is gonna be like, oh my God, wait, I love nitrite. They're gonna take it and they're gonna convert it into nitrate. One letter off. I know, it's weird, confusing, I'm sorry. But I have good news, because nitrate is only toxic in high amounts, and that's the nitrogen cycle. So everything's toxic. That's where water changes come in. That's also where live plants come in. You see, live plants use up nitrate in order to grow. And also, when we do a water change, it's removing the nitrates, because we're removing the water that has the nitrates in it. For bettas, you'll want to try and keep your nitrates under 20 parts per million. You can test all of this with a liquid testing kit. It's the most accurate. I use the API Master Freshwater Test Kit, I believe. Probably different order of words, but you get the gist. It is pricey, but it will last you forever. Your whole life. Not your whole life, but a long time. A good chunk of your life. Not really. But it will seem like a long time compared to test strips. Believe me, trust. So I explained the nitrogen cycle, but I didn't exactly explain how to cycle your tank. You'll want to make sure there's no chlorine in your water before you start cycling the tank, because chlorine kills beneficial bacteria. My favorite dechlor is Chem Prime. You do need to start with ammonia, but you do not want to start with ammonia from a fish if you're a beginner, because it is very stressful for the fish and they could end up getting sick and passing away. What I've always done is add fish food into the tank that will break down and create ammonia over time. You can also buy bottled ammonia. Fish keeping makes you buy weird stuff. So you add your ammonia to the tank, and you can either just wait until it's cycled, or you can speed up the process with live bacteria. You can actually buy little packets of bacteria. If you already have a tank up and running, you can take some filter media from that filter with colonized bacteria already on it and put it in your new filter. Which reminds me, I forgot to mention that filter cartridges are a scam. Please just don't. I use ceramic rings and sponges, and that's it. You don't have to replace it. You don't have to keep buying more of it. You just rinse it off in tank water. If you rinse it in chlorinated tap water, you will kill the bacteria and maybe your fish. How do you know when your tank is cycled? You know it's cycled when there is 0 ammonia and 0 nitrite, because remember, those are toxic. Any amount of ammonia or nitrite is toxic. And you should start seeing nitrates. Once you have that, your tank is cycled. Now we're finally getting into water parameters. That's all the numbers. Where your ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate are at. You know what those are, because we just talked about it. You remember all that? It's okay, you can rewind it. I keep my Betta's tank around 78 degrees Fahrenheit. You want it to be between 75 and 80, somewhere around that general area. If it's too cold, your fish is gonna slow down and get stressed out, might get sick. If it's too hot, their metabolism is gonna speed up and they will age more quickly. pH 6.5 to 7.5. GH 3 to 5, they like softer water. You can soften the water with tannins, which are great for bettas. They have antifungal and antibacterial properties. They also lower pH, and you can get tannins from wood, leaves, cones, or bark. Highly recommend. So your tank is cycled. You put the fish in. Now what the heck do you feed it? In my humble opinion, pellets are junk. I avoid them like the plague. It's got a lot of filler ingredients. There's no fish food pellet on this earth that does not contain plant matter in some form. And bettas are carnivores. They eat bugs and larvae and small little critters out in the wild. You may hear some people say to feed your fish peas if they are bloated or constipated. That is not true for bettas. They cannot digest plant matter. Their tummies just aren't built for that. Instead, you can try Daphnia or scuds. Those work kind of like a laxative for bettas, and they are little critters. They're just meat. I feed my betta live foods and frozen foods. I usually cycle through like brine shrimp, mysis shrimp, tubifex worms, krill, bloodworms, even though I'm allergic to them and it's really annoying and I get so itchy in my eyeballs every time. For the fish. And then for live foods, black worms, fruit flies, anything small enough to fit in their mouth. Pinhead crickets even, like, it's fun. Bettas are fun. You can give them live brine shrimp, live Daphnia, live scuds, live any version of the frozen food if you can find it. Go off.
I just so happen to sell scuds on eBay. Sydspetshop if you're interested.
I recommend having medicine on hand in case your betta gets sick. The most common things I see happening with bettas are fungal infections, bacterial infections, and dropsy. So having something antifungal or antibacterial or both is great to have just in case anything goes wrong, but do not get anything with tea tree oil in it. Tea tree oil coats the betta's labyrinth organ, which is what they use to breathe. I know, Margot, it's crazy. Why would it do that? I don't know. Come here. Come here. That's my baby. I have seen people use products with tea tree oil in it because it's diluted. I just would avoid it. Like, there's so many other products out there. Margot butt. Now, what about tank mates? Can you put any other fish with bettas? The age-old question. The answer is yes and no. So, fish are friends, not food. Okay, I can't have your butt in my face. Fish are kind of like us. Some of us love people. Some of us don't like being around people. Can you get your bottom out of my face? Moving on. So yeah, every betta has a different personality. Some are fine with tank mates, some hate them.
I hate your hair and makeup today.
I've heard that if you want to keep other critters with your betta, it helps to have the critters in the tank first before you add your betta, because if your betta's living in there and then you add these random people in there, they're gonna be like, this is my territory, who are you? When you're choosing what critters to put in with your betta, you'll want to consider their water requirements and their diets. It'll make things a whole lot easier for you and them if they have as similar husbandry as possible. I've also heard that it helps if the tank mates are smaller and less colorful than the betta, because then they won't feel threatened by their beauty and feel like they have to compete for dominance or something like that. I don't know, bettas have a very big ego. Your safest bet ever, in my opinion, is a nerite snail. They're basically just a shell that moves, as opposed to mystery snails, who are a moving shell, but they have these giant antennas flowing everywhere that look like worms, which bettas love to eat. Another safe bet would be a fish that hides a lot, like coolie loaches. You'll barely ever see them, and so will the betta. And I'm not gonna get into it too much on here, but female bettas can be kept with other female bettas, but don't do it. If you're watching this video, you're probably just starting out with betta fish. Don't do a sorority. It's very difficult. There are very, very specific things that need to be done in order for it to work out well. And even then, it might go wrong and they might all fight to the death. To have a sorority, you need to be able to recognize their body language, signs of stress, illness, what's normal, what's not. So I only recommend sorority tanks, which is multiple female bettas living together, for people who are experienced with betta fish. And lastly, we're gonna talk about enrichment, because every animal deserves to have fun, even a little 3-inch fish. So like I said earlier, tunnels and hides are great enrichment for them. Lots of plants, they love wedging into places. Also be careful with that, because if there are two places that are so close that they can get wedged in and get stuck, they will not be able to breathe and they will died. Live foods, like I mentioned earlier, they love chasing it down and hunting for their food. You could use a laser pointer and have them chase it around the tank. I've done this with my bettas. It's super cute. Just make sure you feed them after, because they think they're chasing food and they can get kind of frustrated if there's no food to actually eat. You can take an expo marker and draw on the outside of the tank on the glass. You can play tic-tac-toe with your betta. You can play Pictionary with your betta, hangman somehow. One time I had my betta just swim around and I followed him with the marker and just to see what he drew, and this is what he drew, if I can find it. It's a beautiful masterpiece. You can just draw a little heart around them, let them know you love them. You can train them to go through hoops and such. You can have them jump out of the water for their food, like have it on some feeding tongs. Just be careful with that because they will jump out of the tank. Sometimes they'll follow your finger around. It's fun. And if y'all can think of any other enrichment things for bettas, let me know, because there's a lot out there. There's some really cute decorations for fish tanks on Etsy. Highly recommend. Like really unique stuff you wouldn't find in chain pet stores. If y'all need any salvinia or duckweed, go to my Etsy, Sydspetshop on Etsy. SYDSPETSHOP on ETSY. Thank you. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something new. Please consider subscribing. Margot and I would really appreciate it. Yes, she's still here. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Peace and love. Did my eyeball move? Oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that. I wore my goldfish earrings for this one.
You better work.